On July 28, 2018, 42-year-old Rhonda Day traveled from Lebanon Junction to Louisville in Kentucky to visit a friend on Marie Anna Drive. She has never been seen since. 5 days later, her car was found a little over a mile away on Cane Run Road.
Warning. The podcast you're about to listen to may contain graphic descriptions of violent assaults, murder, and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, today we are with Destiny and Melissa, so let's introduce everybody. Destiny, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're related to Rhonda.
Rhonda is my cousin. Her mom is my great aunt. I'm about to be 22.
Gotcha. And Melissa, same.
Hi, David. Nice to be here. I am Rhonda's aunt, and I'm here to try to help find out anything we can and to let you know Rhonda.
Good deal. I think that's the important part that we're looking forward to do today is I really want the audience to see who Rhonda is, to be able to pray for her, to be able to help look for her, maybe to shake some things loose and bring this to a resolution, hopefully a good resolution, and to keep the word out. Let's start with this. I'm going to open the floor to both of you. Is just tell us who Rhonda is from the youngest ages you all can remember. Destiny, I know that you're just 22, so you won't go back as far as Melissa goes. But tell us about who she is, her passions, her hobbies, her interest, her personality, anything you can think about that would let people know who Rhonda is.
Rhonda is a sweet person that always loved to be with the family, and she loved to take care of my great-grandma. When great-grandma is in the hospital, before Rhonda went missing, Rhonda stayed in the hospital with Grandma.
Good deal. Kind of a round-the-clock caretaker. Were they pretty close?
Very close.
Gotcha.
Very close.
Gotcha.
She lived upstairs over top of her grandmother.
Okay, gotcha. And how do you know any idea how long she lived with her grandmother? Just roughly?
Oh, many, many years.
Many years, okay.
Yeah, many years. I'd say probably 10 or more.
Gotcha. Well, tell it. Okay, so we know that she's close to Grandma, and we have to assume that this is really rough on her grandmother, if they were that
Very.
close. Is that
Very.
It's got to be rough, and hopefully that's why we want to get answers for this, for sure. Tell us a little bit about more who she was. Let's go back. Can we go back to her childhood?
Okay,
Melissa?
that would be, she was a very inquisitive child. She always stopped and smelled every flower, stopped and looked at every bug. And my sisters, they would take their kids out to go for a walk. And the other child, the cousin, she'd be running ahead and Rhonda Faye would be behind. And they would always say, "Come on, Rhonda Faye, slow down, Dana." She just always loved bugs, animals. As a matter of fact, her and my daughter used to play in a creek. And this creek, cows played in it too. And that was just up Rhonda Faye's alley. She's in a creek with animals and she loved it. And that kind of carried on into when she became an adult. She was the type that would pull off the side of the road to take a turtle out of the road.
Gotcha.
She had a very funny sense of humor. When she was real small, I took her to Walmart. There was a Santa Claus there. And I always had nicknames for everybody. And her name is Rhonda Faye, but I called her Faye Ray. And Santa Claus come up and said, "What's your name, young lady?" And she got this little smirk on her face. And I could tell she was going to say something she knew that would throw the Santa Claus off. She said, "Faye Ray." And she just looked at him like, "What do you think of that name?" So then also that nickname carried on into when she got married, and she married a man with the last name Day. And she and I would just laugh because her name was Faye Ray Day.
Oh, Lord.
So, yeah. Just stuff like that we laughed about all the time. And I know there was a time when my daughter, that was the humor side of her. If you want to see her heart, was my daughter had surgery. And if you've ever had anybody that had wounds that had to have a wound vac, they had to have their bandages changed twice a day.
Right.
And after she got out of the hospital, I was going to have to come home from work every day and change her bandages. And Rhonda said, "No." Aunt Melissa said, "I'm going to come down there and change them while you're at work." And she came down every day, changed Amy's bandages, and took her to the doctor so I wouldn't have to miss work. So she had an affinity to help.
Gotcha.
I can also, there was this one lady told me about a time that Rhonda Faye got all her paintbrushes and her paint together, and they took the kids down to the park. Well, there was a time when they had these rocks that you had to paint, and you put dates on them and where you were from, and you hit them, and people would go looking for them. And that they painted a bunch of stuff for the kids, and they hit them, and then they went rock looking, and that they had found a rock from Florida. So that they just found that very interesting that,
Sure.
that they found that. And then, of course, I look around here, and we're here at the library, and Rhonda Faye was a very big reader. There was a librarian that told my sister that Rhonda was the most prolific reader that they had ever had. So she was very intelligent. She went to Bernheim one time, took kids, and she was like a tour guide. She would explain everything as they walked, what it was and everything. So she was not only funny, smart, but she just learned to love. I love to learn. My mother told me that Rhonda Faye always took good care of her. And Rhonda Faye worked at a secondhand store. She was always buying things and bringing stuff home to Mom. And she would take Mom to her doctor's appointments. And, they were just really, really close. And my mom also said, we were talking about we always do this. What if Rhonda Faye walked through the door? What would we do? And somebody said, well, I think I'd spank her butt. And my mom said, no, you wouldn't, because I'm going to grab a hold of her and I'm going to hug her and never let her go. So you'd have to pry me off of her. That's just how close Mom and Rhonda were.
Yeah.
I know that Rhonda, she had a brother that was 10 years younger than her. And they got into trouble together. But she was kind of responsible for going down the road that they went with Michael.
Gotcha.
And she led him in kind of on the drug scene. And after she disappeared, we found in her Bible like a prayer list. And one of the things on her prayer list was babies without mamas. So it's always the downtrodden, those that she felt sorry for. And then she also had a little note that said, God, if this is wrong, I'm sorry. So we've had a lot of wonder what she meant. But I really, really think she had a lot of guilt for Michael going down the road that he went down.
Sure.
And I really do think that she was praying that whatever it takes to get my brother clean, that she was willing. And I don't think it's a matter of coincidence that he signed himself into drug rehab on her birthday, right after she went missing. And thankfully, he's 6 years clean. He is preaching the word of God. He's got a family. So I really think that Rhonda would say it was worth it. Whatever has happened to her.
What a remarkable story.
I think she would say it was worth it.
Yeah, and it sounds like that big heart is probably genuine. Very maternal, very maternal. I just found out this morning that Rhonda used to work for this library system here in Bullitt County.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, and here we are. And kind of talk about kismet is the idea that we're actually borrowing a room from them and that she used to work here. When she read, do you have any idea what her biggest interest in reading was?
I know she did read a lot of Stephen King novels, but I think she just loved to read anything.
Right.
Anything. She just loved to read. I think it was, maybe it took her to a different place, and it also helped her to learn. If you can delve into reading, you can delve into other life, other, worlds, and she just loved to do that.
And that kind of fits with that interest in things like bugs. I mean, is trying to get as much as you can in that too. So she's an avid reader. In her sense of humor, what was that like? What do you think her sense of humor circled around the most?
I think she just liked to make people laugh.
She
probably saying things that would just take somebody off guard.
Gotcha.
Like your brother.
Huh?
Like your brother.
My brother's terrible, but
That's why I have to.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
How my grandma mentioned she loved animals. Rhonda never left home without her cat. And also, Rhonda had a cat that my great-grandma loved. You could explain the rest of it.
Rhonda had a cat that was beautiful. It was beautiful. She just brought it in because she always took care of any kind of animal she could find. And my mother fell in love with it. So, of course, she'd wanted it for herself, but she brought it and gave it to my mom. Mm-hmm. And Mom still has that cat to this day. And just a thing that Rhonda Faye, if she thought she could make somebody happy, that she would do it.
And we'll come back to the cat in a little bit, because that's actually one of the things that makes this whole thing very suspicious.
Right.
Is that when somebody leaves things that we know that they love and they attend to all the
Yes.
time, but we'll circle back around to that, because that's actually a pretty important part
Yes.
of Rhonda's story. So growing up and everything, let's go into, you said she had married somebody by the last time of day, and we don't
Yes.
have to really go into that, but so she's been married before.
She's been married twice.
Twice, gotcha. And we don't have to name names, but any children in any of those relationships?
She has one son. He's in his 20s now.
Gotcha.
And she had 2 grandchildren.
Gotcha. So we talked about the fact she's got a great sense of humor, an avid reader, very curious. What about other hobbies besides reading? Do you remember anything her growing up that she was interested in?
Well, she would bring her nephew to my house to go swimming all the time.
Okay.
You know, I had to let her know I don't have to be home. She'd want me to be home. I'd say, just bring him.
Gotcha.
And now her nephew has not been swimming again since she left.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I'm
That's sad.
trying to encourage him to come back this summer and go
Yeah,
swimming.
there we go again. The impact that these things have
Yes.
on families and people that are close to people. It changes people's lives.
Yes, it does.
And in
Right.
a very negative way, for sure. How about jobs? Can you remember the first things that she did?
I
and what
do
she
know
was
she's waitressed before.
Okay.
And she also, like I said, she worked at old folks' home. She loved old people.
Okay.
You know, she liked to take care of them. So, you know, just listening to even things that I'm saying right now, it's a nurturing kind of
That's what we keep
kind of
coming
thing.
back
She-
to.
Yeah, she loved the old people, and she took care of them. And she worked at, like I said, the library, and she also worked at a secondhand store.
Gotcha. And one thing too, again, we'll keep in the back of our minds, the listeners will too, is that when we talk about risk factors, is that sometimes when we're nurturing people, we're a little vulnerable. And I don't know if it has anything to do with this case, but we tend to go into gray areas with people because we believe more than they do sometimes. And
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think though, to her detriment, she trusted everyone.
there we go.
You know, when I think about her disappearance, it probably, if she had run out of gas or something, it wouldn't have been anything for her to just say, okay, come take me to go get gas. And I think she
Exactly.
would trust anybody.
Yeah. Or it's somebody stopping at the side of the road.
Right.
You know, and things
Right.
like that. And we'll get to how that all plays out and how that's one of the many possibilities, I think, in this whole thing that's there. Destiny, can you think back to, at 22, can you think back to the first memories you have of Rhonda and the relationship you all had?
Was it cheesecake she made, like pumpkin cheesecake?
There was some kind of special cheesecake, I think.
She made the best cheesecake
Okay.
ever for Thanksgiving.
There we go.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Everyone loved it. My mom wasn't my mom and Aunt Amy? No, Rhonda and my Aunt Amy made my mom eat cat food.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was funny. The one time that she tricked my my daughter into eating some cat food. And they thought it was funny until my dad made her eat cat food.
Oh.
To show her what it was like. If you can make somebody else do it, but that's just a childhood prank that she thought was funny.
And it was Rhonda had somebody eat cat food?
Yeah, Rhonda Faye had my daughter, her mother, just eat some cat food.
I had 4 crazy brothers growing up, and I was in the middle, and that we might have beat that once or twice, but that's still pretty good. That's there. So that gives me ideas about Wendy. But anyway, when I get back home, maybe we'll try that on her and see how she likes that. Well, let's. Can you think of anything else about her that we needed to know? If we can just touch on the drug use, because that's a risk factor too. I don't want to delve on it. And again, one thing I always like to make sure people understand is that there's nobody or no family that isn't vulnerable to that. And I've experienced it in my family more than once. So we have to understand that we can't look at people differently because of that. And sometimes it's a vulnerability. How was she doing at the time that she disappeared? Pretty much in good shape?
Well, she had gotten clean.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had heard recently that she had gotten back into it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I didn't know a lot of what kind of drug or anything like that because that was a world that was apart from her family life.
Gotcha.
You know, so I can't delve a lot into, I know that she started out with marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, then when her brother, he was 10 years younger, when he got to be a teenager, she got him into it.
Gotcha.
But as far as, I think from what I've heard, pills was her go-to
Right.
drug.
Easy to obtain. Right.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah. And again, that's important in a case like this, only because if there's a nexus between that, the people listening, we need to talk to people in those communities, in those people to see, because that's where an answer might lie too. Well, let's go and get into that. We're here today because she's missing, and arguably, as the listeners hear you tell the story, it's very suspicious. Is that it's not normal? There's not a lot to it. We've done shows about missing person investigations, and I did tons of those when I was a detective at the police department. And I always we try to educate people on the idea that lots of adults just do leave. Most just have some kind of a circumstance. And what we're always looking for is those handful of things where everybody would agree that say, this just isn't a case probably where somebody uprooted and changed their life or suffered a traumatic brain injury or mental health issues. Arguably, there's something fishy about Rhonda going missing. So can you take us back to July of 2018?
Yes. July 28th. She was wanting to go visit a childhood friend. It was a cousin of her best friend.
Gotcha.
And she needed gas money. So she went to my grandmother, who she lived with, and asked to borrow $5 for gas. So we know she didn't have a lot of gas.
That'd be a couple gallons back then.
Right.
Right.
And we even went to the truck stop, and they looked on their film, and she was there getting gas. So we do know that she did get the gas. And she went to Louisville. That's where her friend lived. And then she didn't come home that night. And she always come home. She never stayed away from home. Like I said, she lived with her grandmother. She knows that her grandmother would worry about her. And she had called my mom the night before and said, Grandma, I'm going to be a little bit later than usual, but I'm going to be home. Said, you can go ahead and lock the door if you need to. And Mom said, no, I'm going to leave it open for you. Well, so that shows intent to come home.
Oh, absolutely.
She was going to come home.
Right.
And then she didn't come home that night. So my mom called me the very next morning, and she said, Melissa, how do you report a missing person? I said, well, who's missing? She said, Rhonda Faye. And I said, what do you mean missing? She said, well, she always comes home. She didn't come home last night. So my mom automatically knew something was up, because it was so out of her character not to come home. So I said, well, Mom, she's 42. And she was going to a guy's house. We don't like it if she spent the night, but she's 42. We can't do anything about it.
True.
So we just kind of thought maybe that's what it was. She spent the night with her friend. And when she didn't come home the second night, we reported her missing.
Right.
And my sister and her Rhonda's brother, Mike, they went to this friend's house, and they asked him if he had seen her, where she was. And he said he had seen her at 5 a.m. that morning in his driveway playing on her iPad. Well, she sometimes did that, sat in her car and played on her iPad.
Sure.
Right.
So, but the thing about that, though, too, is at home, her iPad charger and her phone charger were on her bed at home.
Right. That's
that's another point to me. She planned to come back.
Sure.
Or she would have brought her charger if she was planning to go and be gone for a while.
For logistics for the listeners and for our YouTube people, I'll have some maps and some video about what all this looks like. But so she leaves Lebanon Junction, and that's 30 to 40 minutes to
Yes.
where this Maria Anna Drive.
Right.
And also what people might want to understand, I think that we call that area Pleasurish Park.
Yes.
Yes.
PRP. I'm an old Louisville boy.
PRP.
And that's roughly southwest of the heart of Louisville, very close to the Ohio River. So
Yes.
I'm trying to paint a picture
Right.
of where that is. So she, and what kind of car did she have again?
She had a blue Chevy Aveo,
Okay.
and it was found just 1.3 miles from her friend's
1.6
house.
miles.
1.3 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty close
Yes.
on Cane Run.
Cane Run.
Yeah,
Road.
Cane Run.
Road.
Yeah.
So, and again, just keeping the logistics, we're talking 30, 40 minutes away. Couple gallons of gas. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, that would be like 32 gallons of gas. But, so a couple gallons of gas. And she goes, and when she visits this friend, again, how long had they known each other, and what kind of friendship was it?
From what I know, It was a childhood friend
Gotcha.
Right.
she was best friends with his cousin.
Okay.
And so they kind of played together as kids, and then it grew into when they were adults. Now, Mike says that they all partied together.
Okay.
So I would think probably a party friend.
There we go. Somewhere that if we were back to dabbling in that stuff, as you would like folks to like, that's why we have to recognize that as a risk factor in here for sure too. So she goes there, and this may be going past what you have, but he sees her in a driveway. Did he ever mention anybody that you're aware of when she left the door of his house to go to the car?
No, I have not heard that. All I know is he said he saw her sitting in his driveway when he went to let his dog out, and that she waved at him. And then she pulled out of his driveway, is what he says.
So we believe he saw her leave the driveway.
Yes.
Now, the car was not found till 5 days after.
Right. That was early August.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So I have some question about why none of us saw it or anything when we went down there.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
Because again, and again on YouTube, I'll put a map and I'll show, because it was in a parking lot of there's a refinery, if I remember correctly there. So I'll have those graphics. And that's the thing is, okay, we're talking, I think, August 3rd, it's discovered, is when we look at a case like this, is we have to start wondering, was it always there of the day of the missing? And here you go. Now you're saying you all been in that area and didn't see it.
Right. We did not see it.
Exactly, which is odd, isn't it, Destiny?
Yes.
So if we, who knows, is that you've got a series of days in there where that vehicle may have been there, and I've seen a picture of where it was at. It was right off of Cane Run, if I remember correctly. I
Yes,
mean,
it
like,
was.
You'd almost
From
hit it.
Now
we've been told.
we did have somebody though that did contact us and say that they were going to a birthday party and did see that car Sunday afternoon.
Okay,
there.
Gotcha. Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I
gotcha.
don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe we saw it, but we did not recognize it at the time.
No, we would have recognized it.
Yeah.
Could it have been somewhere else
Because we
when
were
we
looking for it.
searched?
I don't know.
And another thing too, when
Yeah.
have you ever had this happen? You're looking for a blue car, and that day you see every blue car. That,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes.
and that's something that even when I was still a cop,
Yeah.
as soon as they'd put an attempt to locate out on something.
Well, something that we did try, we went door to door,
Okay.
and we were trying to find somebody that had a video camera
Ah.
that could have spotted that car when if they would go back and look at it and see if they spotted that car when it was parked there, who was driving it, or if they could zoom in and see if it was a male driving it, female driving it, but we didn't have any luck with that.
Yeah, and a couple things on that is that today your probability would probably be higher, more
Right.
people because of the way
Correct.
the internet's advanced and technologies. You'd probably
Right.
have that too. And something else too that I think is neat that you all did that is it doesn't hurt for families to go out and do. And I know we live in a world where we have a lot of expectations on law enforcement, and that's reasonable. But at the same time, the more people that are out hunting and looking, the more likely we are to gather something, if that makes any sense. So hats off to you all for looking for the car and then going door to door and trying to exhaust that possibility. Like I said, these days you probably have a higher probability of that. So the car is located. Am I correct in the fact that it didn't get towed or processed?
No, it did not.
No.
They just called. A policeman called my sister and said, "We found her car. You need to come get it."
Okay, gotcha.
So that's when my nephew, her son, kind of set up surveillance on it, hoping it's,
Sure.
And of course, I need to mention that her brother and her son, when they said to come get it, they went to it and they started looking through it to see if they could find any hints. But then that was already tampering with evidence. So,
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say tampering with evidence because it wasn't a criminal offense.
Well,
Yes,
well,
so-
yeah, or that
yeah.
was messing up what they could have found out.
But
or
here's
anything.
the thing: is again when we don't do this for a living, we don't know. So
Right.
yeah, that's completely
So,
understandable.
but then when he was like I said, had it under surveillance, he heard some kind of a noise and he called a cop. And a cop came and said they didn't take that, impound it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said no. And they said that, well, they should have impounded it right away.
I got you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it
That's
was
a
already
little frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I have no idea. I know that sometimes with adult missing person cases, there's this gray area as you're gathering these facts that make them. I'm not making excuses for it, but I know that you're looking for things again, and we're going to keep covering those things that say this one probably should be looked at differently, and there's a fuzzy time period in there. So yeah, I mean, that would have been good. Look at seat position,
That's
fuel tank
exactly.
levels, things like that. And but again, nobody should be wearing any guilt for going through the car. I'd have gone through the car,
Right,
and,
right.
because we're curious and
Yeah.
we're really hungry to find that out. So she vanishes. And the last place we have her is on Mariana Drive at her friend's house. He's the last person that we know of that so far that saw her. How's he been? And again, we're not going to name him because he's not.
He's not a known suspect.
That's it, exactly. And so we got to be fair to people. But has he been very helpful in the search for Rhonda?
Not really.
Not at all.
Okay.
He has not participated in any of the searches.
Gotcha.
We had 2 searches. He has never called to say, have you found her? Here, let me give you some information. The last thing I can tell you is.
Right.
So he wasn't present and help at all.
Right.
Gotcha. And some, I hate to say it, but some people just don't care. That's the world we live
I
in.
know, but, of course, I always think if it was my friend, I'd turned every rock
Exactly.
upside down.
And that's okay to think that way because I think that we have to compare people's behavior to what most people would do. So what's that look like? So you reported her missing, I guess, with the police in Lebanon Junction?
In Lebanon Junction first.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
And then with the car being found in Louisville, I'm going to assume Louisville Police took the
over.
investigation.
Yes.
And that's how that works too, is that
Yes.
wherever the preponderance of the evidence is
Yes.
goes. And not to mention too that Louisville will have a few more resources than
Right.
Lebanon Junction. Lebanon Junction
Exactly.
and it's a very good police department. I've worked with a lot of people and trained some of their people before. Very good PD, but when you get into an area like Louisville, the resources are a lot
Yes.
deeper and not well.
Exactly.
What's it look like? What in those initial days? So you find the car. What kind of efforts did everybody make to try to find her? I know you were looking for the car.
Yeah, like I said, we went door to door, and then we also did a search down by the river and down at the boat docks and everything on foot. And there's 2 aerial searches and 2 foot searches.
Gotcha.
I did want to mention that we did have a lot of help from the
Crystal
Crystal Rogers
Rogers.
search team.
There
They
we
came
go.
down to help us, which was very much
What
appreciated.
a
Yes.
great group of people. I mean, it did. I love when people get involved again.
Yes.
More boots on the ground, more
Yes.
eyes, more
Right.
people
Yes.
doing it.
But it didn't turn up anything. And also, the police, they did took a cadaver dogs
Right.
to the friend's house and to his truck, and there was nothing found.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
So we've got
so-
that.
So we had aerial searches, foot searches, cadaver dogs. We went to the internet. We had podcast. We'd had put
It
a flyer
aired-
out to everybody, shared our flyer with everybody.
Right. We had it aired out on the news twice.
Yeah,
once
we've
or
had
twice.
some of the local stations
Gotcha.
they didn't cover it a lot, but
Yeah.
mention of it.
The media gets what they can get, and if something big's going on, then they'll drift to it. So it's just the
Yeah,
nature
I had
of the
an
beast.
experience with not too long ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were wanting to they contacted me wanting to do a story on her again. And I said, that, okay, I would do it. So we had it all set up, what day it was going to be. The night before, she said her boss was putting her on something else. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I said, well, get back in touch with me. And I thought they probably wouldn't, but she did. Got back in touch with me. Said we'd do a story on it. Then the day of, I think she contacted me, said her boss put her on something.
Mhm.
And then I said this. I may not have, should have, but I said, this may not be important to you. And I feel like we're filler news, that nothing's going on, so you put me as a filler. May not be important to you, but it's the most important thing in the world to us.
Absolutely.
So if you can't have it to be of importance, then I'm not interested.
yeah.
And that's just how I felt, because I don't want her story to be filler news,
Sure.
because it is a real thing. She's really missing. There's a family tore up, and where she's at, I don't know, but there's just not a day that goes by that you don't hope that you'll hear from her,
Exactly.
or you'll see her, or you'll hear something, and it's not just her, it's every missing person.
It's true, and there's so many.
Yes, there are.
Again, Wendy, who's not here today, breathes and eats this whole thing. And one of the things that years ago I got across to her is how many people are missing. And what's frightening is how many people are missing that just never were reported.
Exactly.
Where people just assumed, family or friends assumed that they'd drifted off. It's scary.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's frightening. And again, here we are. She's a person. She was loved by many and loved people, obviously. I mean, just
Right.
a compassionate, maternal
And see,
person.
that's where I feel like that, I guess the world feels you, is they think that if it's a person that had a problem, they're not worth finding.
And they're wrong.
I think that's something that goes around, and it's so untrue.
And I
Everybody
agree.
deserves to be found.
And I think that's gotten worse is as a society, we have people that can be incredibly judgmental, and there's people that can wash their hands of something. And we call it victimology and risk factors. What they do is they wash their hands of any interest in with phrases like, well, they had that coming, or, you effed around and found out, whatever they use. That's so wrong. And usually, and I would never wish this, they'll never understand that unless they're
it
in those
happens
shoes.
to them.
And then
Yeah.
the world will,
Exactly.
then we won't be able to do enough, or nobody will be able to
Right.
do enough for them. And it's sad. Now, I can tell you, though, that after doing the job is that we always used to take our victims as we found them. And there were plenty of times that me and the people I worked with and the detectives in Louisville and Lebanon Junction right now, that however you walk that walk really doesn't matter. When somebody hurts somebody else, takes somebody else, that's an offense against the whole community because we're all at risk with that.
Exactly.
And again, you know better than I that if somebody has harmed Rhonda, then they removed the possibility of her completely turning her life around. That got extinguished, and that's horrible. That's not tragic. That's just evil. Is that a lot of people deal with issues and they change, but if somebody takes away the opportunity for them to change, that's the devil. That's the devil at work. So, anything new, and maybe the other news stations will come around. I mean, I would recommend taking what you can get from them. I know that they,
Right.
and whoever this person was, she's probably a fine person, but she's got a boss like.
Oh, I told her that. I said, I understand that you have to do your job and do what the boss says.
Sure.
But I said, I'm just asking you to understand that it's making me feel like that it's just, you ain't got nothing else to broadcast, so let's do this.
Yeah.
And I said, that's not how I feel about it. I feel it's important.
Yeah, I don't know if sometimes they're prepared for the emotional rawness that they run into. I just don't know. I can share one time I remember I was on the phone with a reporter with the Herald Leader many years ago on a case, and she had gone to a victim's house. And what I heard on the other end of the phone was her getting thrown off the porch. And,
Wow.
And again, she's covering a story, but I don't think she was prepared for that.
The rawness.
The rawness of it, that I'm going to knock on this door, and that where people are in that moment. And even detectives will tell you that we're used to it, is beat up on us. I mean, I've had people yell at me and scream at me, and that's fine.
Because you realize where it's coming from.
That's it, yeah. And so hopefully, I have no doubt that whoever's working the case now in Louisville is probably of that same nature, is that they're probably waiting for the thing they need to move it forward, whatever that is. Let's go there for a minute.
Okay.
If you could speak to the community in this area, what would you all ask them to do? I'll start with Melissa and then Destiny, you two. What would you ask people in the community to do?
Well, at this point, since it's been almost 6 years, to always keep their eyes and ears open.
Yes.
Always try to, and be ready to come forward.
Yeah.
So many people are afraid to come forward, or they think it's not big enough. It's too small of a thing. But one small thing could be what could tie the whole thing together.
Thank you.
So I would urge to come forward, anything because somebody knows something.
That's it.
She didn't just disappear.
No.
Somebody knows something. Did somebody slip and say something to somebody else? My main thing would be just urging them to come forward and to realize that nothing's too small.
Thank you. And that's true. And especially 6 years out.
Right.
The detectives would appreciate anything. They would appreciate a little hearsay. They would appreciate anything that turned into a lead of something. And real quick, too, just What was her physical appearance? Do you remember?
She's probably about 5'3", 5'4", something like that. Maybe 5'4", about 180 pounds.
Gotcha.
Blonde hair, green eyes.
Had a tattoo was it sun, but spelled differently?
Sunshine. She had a tattoo said sunshine, like SON, like her son was her sunshine.
Where was that tattoo at? Do you remember?
I believe it was her leg. Was that?
That
I'm really
sounds
not quite
Okay.
sure. I think
Yes.
it was her leg.
But a tattoo's a tattoo. Ears
Yes.
pierced, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes, her ears.
Sometimes wore thick framed glasses or contacts.
I don't
No, I don't think so.
she wore glasses.
Okay,
She probably
gotcha.
had sunglasses on all the time. But
As we heard, she was wearing black. Was it black flip
yeah,
flops?
Grandma Hodge said she was dressed in black.
Gotcha.
When the last time that
What kind of clothes did she usually wear when she was knocking around? Anything that you remember in particular?
shorts and tank tops.
Yes.
There we go. Just comfortable stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, she wasn't. She never did like to dress up or anything.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's important too. And I know that the iPad is gone. What else do we think is still missing?
Okay,
out there?
her phone, her iPad, and her car keys.
Okay.
Was her purse down?
So they not sure if she even took her purse that day.
Okay.
But with those items gone, see, to me, if she had just left to go somewhere and to be gone, and she took those things, she would have been using them.
There
But
we
you
go.
know, the phone company said there's not been any kind of activity,
Gotcha.
you know, on either of them since the last phone call she made was to my mother the night before.
Gotcha. You know, one thing I thought about too is that I think I told you when I was working when we were planning getting together today, is when I was looking at maps and things like that and did that zoom out on Google Earth and saw the river right there.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up in Louisville, and I actually boated on the Ohio River for years, upriver from that, is that river, immediately I thought, what a great place to get rid of things. Because
Exactly.
that river consumes things and it moves quickly under tow and everything. It's the first thing when I saw it, I just had the EBGBs about that's so close, and the car was probably just several hundred feet away from where the river is and access. And again, on the YouTube channel, I'm going to put a lot of images so people can see what that looks like on there too.
Yeah.
So we have missing property that
Yes.
eventually could still be found. We might stumble across that too. Destiny, what would you say to people in the community?
If you have any tips or leads, please reach out to LMPD. Please. It makes it harder on the family when we don't know anything.
100%. And by the way, too, is that let's talk about this for any tips, we really want to go straight to the detectives at LMPD,
Yes.
Louisville Metro Police Department. We don't want them to come through the podcast. We don't want anything getting in the way of this and whatnot.
Right.
And the phone numbers that I have for them is the police department itself is at area code 502-574-7111. And then they have an anonymous tip line, which is handy. It's 502-574-LMPD. And those tip lines are nice. We used to use them back in the Lexington Police Department and still do. To where if people have that information or they believe and they're uncomfortable coming forward, geez, Pete, let's do it anonymously.
Right.
It is that,
Right.
I mean, we love witnesses and we love testimony, but
Right.
this case is about,
Bring justice.
that's it. We need to, it's like a buddy of mine.
We need to bring
described it.
Rhonda home.
Yeah, we do. It's like a buddy of mine said one time, is that it's like a sweater. We've got to pull that first snag to get the yarn going, and that can be something that somebody has. I would ask people to do the same thing. I would even suggest to people, and I've said this before, that I don't know how people carry that on their heart. If they have intimate knowledge about this,
That's what I was thinking on the way up here. I thought,
I know they do.
whoever knows something, I have to believe that when they lay their head on their pillow at night, they got to be thinking.
And again, yeah, why, now we hear sometimes people are afraid, and that's true in some exceptional cases, but that's usually not it.
Right.
And I'm with you. I will say this, that when people carry that, they're wired differently, and they're wired really similarly to anybody who might have done something wrong here. I think whoever carries that information better be real careful and check their character.
Exactly.
And those people that carry this destiny, they're going to stores and restaurants and church with us, to our left and our right.
Right.
I've said it before in a couple of cases, and I'll continue to say it, that I don't know how people are religiously built, but we don't know when we're going to leave this earth. And I got a bad feeling that if you left the earth with this on your heart,
That kind of information.
that's it. I don't think it plays well.
Right.
I think you're a lot like people who actually do the deed. So people if they're listening or they know somebody, they've got to work their conscience.
Just come
out.
clean with whatever you have to say. Please, it would bring our family justice. Rhonda, if you're out there, we love you.
There we go. Melissa, what would you say to?
If I could say something to Rhonda,
Yeah.
first would please come home. You know, that's the main thing we would want out of any of this would be for Rhonda to come home safe.
Absolutely.
But of course, if she doesn't come home, I would just like to say appeal to the people to please, because I know there's somebody out there. There's somebody that could help bring closure. That if she is out there and she's okay, that could let us know.
Right.
Of course, we've heard all kinds of things.
Rumors.
They think she's like hiding out somewhere.
I think I saw that theory somewhere.
Yeah.
Did she have a pending court appearance or something?
She did have.
Yeah.
She had got stopped and had found had some drug paraphernalia.
Okay.
And somebody said something about that she was hiding from that. But according to my sister, they got something that said that after so many years, they drop all that. And it was like 5 years, I think.
Gotcha.
And so that would all be dropped. What would be stopping her from coming home?
True. And hiding that well is actually more difficult than people think.
Rhonda could have done it. She
Yeah,
couldn't
good.
have.
Right.
I mean, she'd have to check on her cat or check on her grandma. Or I mean, there's no way. To
Gotcha.
me, I always felt insulted when somebody said she was just hanging,
Right.
hiding out somewhere.
Gotcha.
Because I know she would never do that to her family.
Yeah.
She would never. Because she told me, like shortly before she disappeared, she said, you know, I love my mom so much. She said, if something were to happen to her, they'd have to scrape me off the floor. Well, if she loved her that much, she wouldn't have done this to her.
Exactly.
You know.
Rhonda, if you're out there, just know Grandma lives somewhere else now.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. If there's something to that, good deal.
Yeah, my mom just turned 91.
Oh.
She's always saying that she just hopes Rhonda Faye comes home before she dies.
Yeah, what a burden to carry on your heart.
Right.
Well, listen, thank both of you for taking the time to meet with me. Again, Wendy, sorry that she's not here. Hopefully we get a resolution sooner than later.
All right.
Hopefully we get a resolution sooner than later on this. And if we do get updates and everything, we'll make sure that the audience of the Murder Police podcast will funnel that out and make sure that they're aware of those updates. If hopefully we get really good news one day.
Right.
If not, it's really good news. Hopefully we just get answers. So,
Exactly.
good deal. Thank you all both.
Even
Appreciate
if it like gives answers to other people.
Yes. Yeah, that's one thing. Good point, Destiny, is that so many other people are dealing with missing people right now is keeping hope alive.
Yeah, I would like an awareness, you know, to go out about missing people and how not as much is going on to help find them as what I feel
It's
like
hard.
there should be.
It's hard.
You know,
Yeah.
it is. It's bad because I know there was times we felt like, you know, why can't we get anything done? Why can't find her? Why don't the news station say more? Why don't people help us more? Why don't, you know, just always feeling like, because in our minds, we want to do everything we can.
Right.
Sure.
You know, we
It's
want to find her.
Right.
You know, please help us.
Right.
You know, and I think that the families often are felt unhelped and like they don't know where to turn or what to do. And
Right.
I think awareness of missing persons need to go out for all those who have missing.
Absolutely
loved
true.
ones.
Absolutely true. Is because it's one of those things that none of us signs up for a class on this. It just happens. And you're in the dark, and the frustration level is incredible too.
Well, I mean, I admit I look at things a lot different now than what I did before. Before, you know, you kind of listen to things, you think, well, it happens to other people, but not to you.
Right.
Right.
And then when it happens to you, it's like I used to always watch Dateline and everything, but now I watch it with a whole lot of different perspective.
From the victim side.
Yeah.
From the surviving victim side. That's a good
Right.
point. Well, good deal. Thank you all again for meeting.
Thank you very much.
We'll stay in touch for sure. And
Thank you for doing this with us, David.
Yes.
No, thank you for trusting us to produce the piece and put it together. So, and I'll tell Wendy you said hi.
Okay, please do. We'd like
Yes,
to meet her.
please do.
We will for sure. Yeah, that's we'll get dinner. I think it's a wrap.
All right, that's a wrap.
The Murder Police podcast is hosted by Wendy and David Lyons and was created to honor the lives of crime victims, so their names are never forgotten. It is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lyons. The Murder Police podcast can be found on your favorite Apple or Android podcast platform, as well as at murderpolicepodcast.com, where you will find show notes, transcripts, information about our presenters, and a link to the official Murder Police Podcast merch store, where you can purchase a huge variety of Murder Police Podcast swag. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is closed caption for those that are hearing impaired. Just search for the Murder Police Podcast and you will find us. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe for more and give us 5 stars and a written review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. Make sure you set your player to automatically download new episodes so you get the new ones as soon as they drop. And please tell your friends. Lock it down, Judy.